Hi there, I'm Haruka. Guys, I said I was sorry, and here's my apology. A big ol' meaty video about the best anime of the year, of 2022, just want to specify because I don't think I ever say it anywhere in this script. You may have noticed in the past few videos that I've been trying to do some new and different things with my videos, so here, I'm going to be borrowing a bit from something that I remember watching way too much as a kid, NFL Network Top 10s. This will make no sense to any of you, but I'm hoping that all of this will make sense as we move along. It's just going to make me feel good about the way I'm making stuff. Anyway, 2022 was absolutely massive when it came to anime. People thought 2021 was good, but we hit another gear this past year. I said this is a top 10. 8 of these shows got a score of 10 from me on Mal. You may say I'm weird for tossing around perfect scores like that, but I'd like to remind everyone that I look at it like grading something as a teacher. Like, so 50% is a failing score to me. So, a 5 is a failing score to me. It is possible to get a 100%. I'm not one of those teachers that's just going to say like, oh, no one should ever get a 100%. 8 shows did that this past year compared to just 3 that came out in 2021. Those were Odd Taxi, which I watched this past year, Bokutachi no Remake, which was my top show the past year, and Higehiro, which was one of the top shows of the past year. Anyway, you can understand that I'm incredibly embarrassed that I had to just barely catch up on all of them after my semester ended in mid-December, and even then I was distracted because I suddenly had the urge to start replaying a certain video game that I thought I'd put away. Now, in order to get through everything I want to talk about, I will be taking some time in between entries to give you all some of the other shows I'd like to highlight from the year. That's what the NFL Top 10 thing is coming from. If you guys like football, you should watch NFL Top 10s. I know that there's some places on the internet that post them. They were fun for me. Alright, I got a whole glass of vodka ready because I'm rationing my beer, so let's get into it. Number 10! Ya boy Kongming. You look at this show's premise objectively, and it feels like something that belongs in the bargain bin. Some ancient Chinese general is brought back to modern-day Japan to be the manager of some underground idol. This is an unholy combination of a bunch of things I do not care about. Romance of the Three Kingdoms is one of those things that I keep seeing in random anime and can never fully understand. Is it like those weirdos who are really into medieval English history because they also like, fantasy and fighting dragons and stuff and knights, whatever. I totally didn't look up a bunch of medieval history last week for my other video. And then there's an idol. Technically, she's more of an indie artist, but it's an anime girl and she's singing. That's an idol show about 97% of the time. You only realize after watching it that it's not an idol show. But somehow, this show surpasses that opening look. Zhugliang, courtesy name Kongming, dies in the middle of a battle, and on his deathbed he prays to be isekai'd into a peaceful world. And while most of the world right now is going to shit, modern Tokyo is about as good as you can get when it comes to peaceful in the way he meant it, except it's not peaceful because it's the middle of Halloween, an American secular holiday that has historically left party districts in Asian countries in shambles over the past decade or so. It makes sense that Kongming thinks he's in hell. But he finds himself drunk at a club and becomes enamored with the house EDM singer Eiko. She is adorable, and despite her better judgment, she takes him home to sleep off the alcohol. And while she doesn't think he's actually a time traveler, she is the one who explains everything to him about the modern world and also gets him a job at the club. This creates what I think is the biggest winning point of this anime, which is the way the show takes ancient battle tactics and texts and then adapts that to modern business practices. Throughout the episodes, we see Kongming talking to the club manager, who is a massive Romance of the Three Kingdoms guy, and discussing old stories from the past. Then, he takes that concept from the ancient battle and applies it to the modern situation where he's helping Eiko as her manager. By the way, we're talking about music, and while I'm not really much for EDM, the OP is an absolute banger, best in the year, and we're gonna get to a show that uses one of my favorite songs from my childhood as its OP. Eiko has a wonderful voice, there's other characters in there that are great. I'm even trying to learn a song from the show. The show itself is a bit formulaic, but only because they crafted the formula themselves. The setup, punchline nature of the show provides structure for these characters to develop. And they really do develop. Honestly, the most amazing part of the show is when Kongming steps aside and it focuses on Eiko or battle rapper Kabe, which, side note, why are you adding a battle rapper? That's a horrible idea when it comes to picking the right type of rapper on a feature for any song. Why? As Denzel Curry once said, my bitch bad like battle rappers that make albums. And I think there's some wisdom in that. But anyway, their stories are incredibly compelling and strike to the heart of what music means to people. This dumb anime about some ancient Chinese general takes him out of the equation for a bit and soars on actual quality writing while taking jabs at the music industry. If you haven't seen this yet, you really should. I'd recommend it to anyone, honestly. Number 9. Showcase JoJo no Virgin Road. So I feel like this show got lost in the scrum back in April because it really did its best to look like a generic isekai, and that's the whole point. Some guy comes to a new fantasy world that has already been shaped by other people from Japan that were isekai'd before him. He finds a beautiful girl that will help him set up a life for himself in this world. All it's missing is fan service, but I'm sure that's coming later. Except the real fan service isn't to isekai fans, but to isekai haters as this girl lops off his fucking head. Turns out the cute girl is Menno, whose job is to find people who are isekai'd and then take them out in as peaceful a fashion as possible. And her next target is the girl that came with the unimportant dude from earlier, Akari. The reason she needs to handle all of these isekai'd people is because all of them show up with special abilities and powers and they always go out of control. And Akari's special ability is time control, which means that when you kill her, she doesn't die. So Menno's got to figure out how to kill her while also pretending to be Akari's friend so that she sticks around. And the entire structure of the church entity Menno works for is falling apart around them. I really do think that the less I say specifically about the plot, the better, but there's also just so much more to love about the show. Like the very clear allusions to other classic isekai standbys, some incredible symbolism presented by Menno as a recurring dream. And did I mention that all of the girls in the show are actually gay? Because yeah, that's a big part of why I love it. That's right, what looked to be the start of a harem isekai with a male protagonist is actually 2 concurrent Yuri love stories, or 3 if you count the unrequited love. See, Menno's got an assistant, Momo, who is madly in love with Menno because they helped each other out in the academy, which I cannot explain to you how because that's such a good moment and plot point how that bond is formed. Then there's Ashina, the warrior princess of the nation that we start off in. She's got some amazing abs and is constantly flirting with Momo in the most himbo way possible as they battle each other constantly. Well, not himbo, like himbo energy, fembo, herbo. Anyway, it's just such a fun dynamic. And finally, there's Akari and Menno, which I think really has the potential to be a Madoka-level tragic ship with everything that they've clued us in on in the show. Showcase JoJo no Virgin Road does so many things that you are not expecting and then executes on every last thing. Except for the horrible CG monster at the end, but it's supposed to be horrifying anyway, so I guess that's just what it is. Now for some disappointments. Some shows come in with a lot of hype, some shows promise early on, but none of these really impressed me in the way that I thought they would. This is about to get incredibly controversial very quickly. Chainsaw Man. I know, but my opinion is so much worse than you think it is because I actually didn't watch it. I read the manga, the first part at least. Because I'd heard that the anime had botched a few things with it, and also I didn't think I'd have time to actually watch the anime, so I just read it mostly while I was on the toilet. Honestly, from what I've seen from like clips of the anime, it looks fine. Even like the CG parts look completely fine. I don't know what everybody's been complaining about. That's the problem though. It was fine. I kept hearing everyone talk about the story like it was a masterpiece, but it was just okay. I had some laughs. It did take a couple of turns that were fun, but it lacked a level of spice that I wanted. Again, I didn't actually watch the anime itself, so maybe the part that threw me off didn't come into play yet in the anime itself, and also there's a chance of like, oh, you know, the anime may have heightened what the original manga was, but again, there were people who said that the manga were still better, so I don't know. In itself, my problem with the manga came from some specific choices that the author made with characters and their usefulness in the story. In a story in which there are plans to move forward with another part, why would you remove certain characters from the story that would help with those next parts? I understand the desire to take people out like Gur Martin, who doesn't love killing off a character that everyone loves? But I think he was running into the same issue late in the game and no one liked how that turned out. So this is a personal thing. It's not like it's bad. It was just fine. The only thing that really stuck with me from the manga was Halloween. Kaigasama Ultra Romantic. Another one that's gonna get me shit from the entire other side of the anime world, but this isn't from a story side, it actually is from the anime adaptation. I feel like with the series' popularity, it got a ton more money and the studio decided to get more and more ambitious with their animation style. I know money does not equal animation, but I feel like they just saw, oh, we're getting a ton of money, let's do more with this. And at some point it just started to get distracting. The ending of the season was brilliantly orchestrated and I think it worked best because they finally toned stuff down. I understand the choice to be over the top because of the themes of the show, but I feel like they just didn't ride that line well enough. It's a very particular balance, and I feel like they tipped a bit too far to one side. Engage Kiss. Now for something less controversial, I was genuinely excited for this one. The guy behind this, Fumiyaki Maruto, was the creator of one of my favorite slow burn series of all time, Saikano, as well as the series Comp Guy for Mirror Tights. But I ended up putting this off to the side like 4 episodes in. Maybe I'd been spoiled because I was watching this in the middle of all of the amazing shows that I'm talking about in this video, but it just wasn't it. It felt like there were openings for it to go somewhere and be interesting, but Maruto just didn't take it. Like, maybe he ended up taking it after the 4 episodes, but it just felt like, oh, he made a choice and it's not going to move from it. And I could see where it was going from like the moment that it started, and that's really unfortunate. Again, it's disappointing because I expected so much more from them. Finally, in this area, Kinso no Vermeil. Who doesn't love an RRR Onoi-san, especially one who is powered by Kiss? And that's what this show should have been about. Instead, the writers got a bit too big for their britches, and when they tried to inject a real plot, they did it in such an insulting way. Unfortunately, this is something that happens late into the show, so I won't get too far into detail about it, like very specific stuff. But in short, they treat the audience like they're idiots and then pat themselves on the back for writing the weakest and most predictable twist? It's hard to call it a twist because literally nothing changes. The reveal changes nothing about the characters' relationships, development, or perception. It's something I thought we were already supposed to assume based on everything else in the story, and they just act like it was some big emotional moment. It was the climax of the season. It was supposed to be the moment, and I was just left feeling completely insulted that they thought that they needed to explain it to me. Especially when after this moment, they show that everyone in the show is shocked by this information that was already in front of them the entire time, to the point that I thought that they were working off of it already. I'm sorry, I love plot both in the real and cultured definition, but when a show on the cultured side tries to claim the other definition, they need to come correct. And putting this up next to a lot of other better shows I'm about to talk about, you will understand what I mean by this and the difference between these two things. Now back to the list, number 8, Princess Connect 2. This is a show that I just cannot give a bad grade. I remember giving the first season a 10 and being so confused with myself because on paper, this should just be a show, but instead it's so much more than the sum of its parts. This is an anime adaptation of a gacha game that I genuinely did not like playing. The gameplay was annoying, the grind of it was annoying, and it was really hard to be free to play. Also, there was just so much stamina all the time, so there was almost never a clear moment for when I could finally put the game down and move on with my day, you know, diminishing returns. But the anime is such a masterclass of the gacha game genre. I made a video about the first season because it so perfectly balanced everything it needed to do. This season, the only thing that I was disappointed by was when it had to be the final season of this series because the big bad has been defeated. Takayomi Kanasaki continued his masterful balancing act with the cute anime girls doing cute things while also handling a much deeper and emotional, almost horror element on the side. Except this season, it felt a little more explained when it came to the horror stuff and instead started going into a bit more of a mystery. Seriously, there's so many things within the back half of the season that aren't fully explained, but it's good that they aren't explained because that mystery didn't need to be answered by the time that the plotline was being resolved. This is a sequel, so I want to spend less time on it, but all I can say is that it converted on the chance it created with the first season. This may have been the first time I have ever seen the power of friendship used against the final boss and have it make any sense. Like, they came with receipts and really made it work in a way that didn't feel cliche, and they built on themes that they had placed ahead of time because it used some very specific and less conventional themes throughout the series. There is a point in the show that feels like the ending of The Last Crusade with the whole reaching for the Grail bit, and it connects with everything that this show is trying to be about. Number 7. Birdie Wink. So when I saw everything leading up to this anime, I was searching for silver. I went all in. And then I found gold. I said that this anime looked like a couple of grown-ass women seriously playing golf in a realistic, dramatic environment. Instead, we got the most batshit fucking crazy lesbian golf mafia anime that outshonens most of what is coming out of Jump these days. There's this girl, Ava, who lives in the slums with her found family, a couple of girls she calls her sisters that are heavily implied to be ex-sex workers, and a bunch of orphans that they're trying to raise together. Despite technically running a bar that they do not own, the real breadwinner of this family is Ava, who's really good at golf, like super good at golf. And she makes money by betting on it against people who do have money so she can take their money. Truly a hero of the working class. Then there's this other girl, Aoi, who is a rich girl who is even more super duper good at golf because she's basically the Japanese Tiger Woods, raised from a young age to be the best golfer in the world. Her greatest skill isn't just her supernatural golf ability, but also that she's so absolutely cheerful all the time that it actually hurts the morale of whoever is golfing against her. So these two girls meet through circumstances, and remember what I said before about the amazing dynamic of one girl who really loves the other girl and that other girl seeing the first girl as her one true enemy? That's what this show is entirely about. Eva is doing everything she can to get out of the slum so she can finally chase her destiny and golf against Aoi, the only girl who could ever come close to her. Meanwhile, Aoi is having to fight every step of the way to help Eva achieve that dream because she genuinely loves Eva in the most wholesome way possible. They're so cute together. I want them to kiss. Oh wait, they do. Anyway, you're probably wondering why I mentioned the Mafia. That's because Ava's earned most of her money in bets from hockey, not from Michael Jordan writing stupid checks after she hits another eagle on a par 5, but from paid proxy wars between Mafia groups that are decided by a golf match, an underground facility with future tech to change the course every time. There's some amazing enemies, and the over-the-top nature of it really lends itself to the sheer stupidity of a lot of sports anime tropes I hate. Like, they are not taking themselves seriously when Ava is screaming the name of her shot and saying she has a bullet for every color of the rainbow. This is dumb fun, it's brilliant action, comedy, even romance, because fuck, these two girls are absolutely getting married by season 4. And yes, I expect more seasons of this. 6 seasons and a movie, let's go. There's already a second season on the way. Now for some shows I should probably watch. I didn't get to everything I wanted to, so here's some extra shows that I want to mention that are at the top of my list from this past year that I really need to see when I get the chance. Heike Monogatari. I love Naoko Yamada. She is genuinely my hero. I talk about her in every single film class I have. If I were to pick one anime director to take anything I've written and put it up on screen, it would be her. So, oops, I just didn't watch this. It's a period piece. It's hard for me to get excited about something like this. It's one of those things I just need to get around to eventually when I have the emotional stamina to watch something that's actually good and meaningful. Mobile Suit Gundam: The Witch from Mercury. I never thought I'd be this interested in a Gundam anime. Like, for me, Gundam is just something I read about in history textbooks. It's like learning about the Pythagorean theorem in class and then suddenly finding out that you actually need to use it for something in your actual life. It's a relic of a time that I don't think we need to go back to. Anime has evolved from giant robots fighting. Now I want to see spicy love triangles and emotional damage. I mean, the big reason I care about this show is because it's gay, and I love that. I'm proud of them. I've just seen enough memes on my Yuri subreddits that I want to see more. Soletta is so cute. Romantic Killer. This show has an average rating of over 8 on Mal, and I feel like that should say something. My favorite Ghibli movie, Porco Rosso, is only at a 7.9. Bokutachi no Remake, my number 1 from 2021, is only a 7.4. Birdie Wing, the show I mentioned just before this segment, is just below a 7.5. And the premise itself is incredibly interesting. Some girl gets visited by a wizard that tells her that she's going to be placed in an Otome game against her will, and now is to pick which dude she wants to keep. It has the right amount of spice, the right amount of mystery, and enough room to run with it. I need to see this for myself. It's a shoujo anime for the modern era, you know? Number 6! Sono Bisque-doll Wakoiwasuru. This is another show that I already made a video about last year. I don't think I need to go over this that much, but just a refresher, I read the manga and thought it was pretty good, pretty fun. Then I watched the anime and holy shit, it's so much better than the manga. Put simply, the sheer work put into the visuals showed a level of love and care to a rom-com that I don't think we'd ever seen before. Yeah, whatever, it's jiggle physics, it's not that complicated, it's a hot girl, whatever. But the sheer expressiveness that Marin has really makes this entire show go down easy. It's one of those beautiful moments where the animators aren't adapting what's on the page, they're adapting the artist's intent, and that's a key thing in adaptation. Don't just do what's on the page. What works on the page isn't gonna work on screen. Like, I don't think there was ever that chibi Marin in the manga, but she's perfect in the anime. And there's a scene in the anime that I think everybody remembers involving a dark stairwell, and I remembered that it happened in the manga, but didn't think much of it. In the anime, however, I think about that clip all the time. They took a pretty good rom-com and just made it so much more than what it was. So if it was already pretty damn good, then the anime can only be great. Absolute masterpiece. Now, some trash for your records, because I know that, like, I need to tell you about some trash, because, I mean, there's a lot of good stuff here that you could consider trash, but, like, no, here's some trash. Isakai Meku de Haremuo. This anime is not good. The protagonist is not a good person. His first reaction to being told that he's in an isekai world with slavery is to immediately get himself a slave that he can fuck. But there's something in there. There's a gleam. Like, I don't know if it's something that the creators intended, but there's this weird dark humor within the juxtaposition of the show. We go from horrifying and sudden violence to a normal isekai, and then to just a straight up hentai, and that's wild. Which, it fulfills all of my hallmarks of getting me interested in a story. Sudden and realistic violence breaks out, and there's definitely realistic horniness. It's not like it's a good anime, but it's doing a lot of things right, and I have this morbid fascination with the show. In order to buy his first slave, he kills an entire bandit camp in their sleep, dismembering them in the process so he can collect the bounties. And then the next day, when he finally gets his dog girl, it is a half-episode sex scene. Kono Healer, which there's a longer name for it and I cannot remember it right now and I didn't write it down. This isn't really horny trash, this is just something mindless to have on in the background while you play Football Manager. I never actually finished it, but you get the entire premise very quickly and it is fairly entertaining throughout. You got a fantasy knight who seems like he's the normal guy, and then a healer who just makes fun of him the entire time, except you start to realize that it's the knight who's the asshole in all of these situations, with delusional visions of grandeur, and the healer is, well, she's still just making fun of him and may or may not be a priestess of Cthulhu or a Cthulhu-like entity. Maybe she can introduce me to Ina. Shin Ikitosen. I didn't watch this, but I feel like I should just mention that Studio Arms is back. I'm pretty sure that's exactly what I said in the preview for that season. So yeah, same. Number 5, Spy X Family. I don't think I've ever actually spoken highly about this series, so let me do that now. This is my mom's new favorite manga, and she's enjoyed the first half of the first season so far. And personally, it's become my new go-to suggestion for random people to watch. It's cute, funny, and generally a good time. The character designs are amazing. With the talk about how hot Yor is, my mom says that Lloyd looks like David Bowie. It's just such a simple premise that works. It's not that complicated. I know that I'm supposed to be some sort of anime hipster and always hating on whatever's popular, but there's really nothing I can point out about the series that could take its stock. Unfortunately, I'm only halfway through the second season, but I've read ahead in the manga and there hasn't been a single dull moment in my opinion. Just keep making more of it. Number 4. Akiba made Senso. The height that I've put this show at might ruffle some feathers, but we're getting into a point in the list where we're looking at absolute fucking masterclasses at what to do when writing a good fucking show. And I saw the signs so early on this one, even before the first episode came out. There was barely any information on the show, but I just found something off about the description of the anime, and then I saw the PV and there was randomly a girl jumping off a building at the end of it. Clearly, PA Works was setting up to deke the whole arena, and you know what? I'm so happy they did, because comparing maid cafe culture to the Yakuza is probably one of the most enlightened takes I've ever seen. It takes the same level of stupid over the top that we got in Birdie Wink, but then does the extra legwork to ground all of these amazing characters into this reality. When you stop looking at it as simply maids and explosions and really give into that Yakuza imagery, this becomes so much more of an enjoyable show. And I don't think we've truly had a cool Yakuza story in anime in an incredibly long time. Like, yeah, Goku Shofudo or whatever, but like actually a Yakuza story. That's usually something that's reserved to either video games or one-off story arcs in a larger show. This focus really provided something extra. But I think that this show was only about a 9 for me until the end of the penultimate episode, because it truly did something that I wasn't expecting, and then the show took that random act to its logical conclusion in the final episode. And that conclusion is, once again, I have to reiterate that I have a genuine dislike of idol music, all of the stylings of the classic late 90s otaku culture. It's something I try to push myself away from, but the story made me tear up as I watched Nagomi's final performance in that final episode. The thing is, It isn't perfect. I realized a couple days after I gave it a score of 10 that there were a couple things that the writers could have done to emphasize what I think they were trying to do, but at the same time, they were throwing bombs and nobody was expecting it, both figuratively in the writing and literally in the action scenes. The story is such a slow burn because it really does lull you into thinking that it's just some dumb, fun action right before it gives you such a visceral gut punch in that second to last episode. Watch it, I think you'll love it. Maybe not as much as I did, but that ending has fucking brass knuckles on. Now for honorable mentions. Here are some shows that on a normal year would probably make a top 10, but wow, this was a good year. First, I just have a couple of Project 9 shows. They've been really amazing recently, and I really think that this is the studio that's going to be the leader in heartfelt, transcendent trash. Project number 9, if you're watching this, I have some spec strips that you can take a look at, please. The first of the two is Surikano. This story came in with a trash premise, but actually handled it almost perfectly. Two characters who had been in a secret relationship, getting over their breakup, now being forced back together because their parents married each other. Like, it's not the usual step story, and I don't really know if the ending actually fits into the usual step story either. It handles both of the characters' feelings with tact and grace. It really captures the feeling of two characters still coming to terms with a really messy breakup. It also has one of my favorite girls of the year in Isana Higashira, which I will talk about that later. Next is Koisika. I don't know how they did it, but someone got me to care about a Sentai show. I mean, I watched HX Eros, also a Project number 9 work right before they hit their stride, but this one is actually good and original. So have you ever noticed how in Sentai shows like this, even if it's for kids, all of the female human-like villains are all in what can only be described as lingerie and bondage and are really hot? Wait, those are the wrong notes. Anyway, the Red Power Ranger is really into the newest hot girl bad guy, and the hot girl bad guy turns out to be just like a genuine, normal, cute girl that just so happens to work for the evil organization. This show has so many interesting concepts and ideas around this whole thing, and each one of them is played out amazingly. I almost never say this, but I really want a second season because I know there's so many more stories to get out of this one. Even if it has a clean ending, I want to see more. Do It Yourself. It's a good, clean, fun critique on capitalism and classism, and you can learn about how to make a bookshelf from scratch. No, this is not a Nick Offerman show, even though, honestly, I think he might love this. But seriously, it's a nice little slice of life with some really neat stuff hidden inside. Like, all of the heavy Yuri undertones and the weird specific engineering quirks of everything in this show are just there. And as mentioned, there's an inherent classism that is built into our modern capitalist world that it's talking about. I just think it's fun. And then I read 2 manga. Fucoi, unfortunately I couldn't fit the anime into my schedule, but I started reading the manga right before they announced the anime, and then I started reading a bit more of it. It's a really nice story. I love Gyaru's stuff, and the best love stories are always the one where they catch feelings in spite of their original hesitation. Then there's Shikimori. I actually did watch the anime for this one, but all of the momentum and energy was sucked out of the room when they were forced to make a clip show episode. And what's worse is that it was because of a bad COVID outbreak within the studio that prevented work being done. It's just so sad that this anime was screwed over by something that Doga Kobo just could not control. Number 3, Cyberpunk Edge Runners. I think in this summer season preview, I mentioned this show with the words, I don't know why they made this. But I followed it up by saying that if there was one studio that should handle the absolute shit show that was Cyberpunk 2077, it would be Studio Trigger, and holy fuck, I was right. So I can only really describe this show in a sports metaphor, specifically American football. If you're someone like me, you consider yourself a story structure nerd, you love plot, and you can usually see where the game is going. You know, what play comes next, you can kind of predict what's going to happen. This is probably one of the few times where seeing what's coming next almost enhances everything on the show. From episode 6 onwards, I had this overwhelming sense of dread. I was Matt Ryan in Super Bowl 51 watching Tom Brady slowly march down the field at the end of the game. There is nothing you can do to stop it. You know what's coming next, and it is horrifying. Seriously, I kind of tried to speed through the last 3 episodes because I was kind of having a panic attack, and I knew that if I stopped watching, I'd never pick the show back up again. And I think that's a testament to how good the show is at developing characters you love and care about, and you just don't want anything bad to happen to them. David is just a kid from the streets whose mom refused to let her son be beaten down by the capitalist caste system, and that's something that really does fuel him. He doesn't say it very often, like he doesn't like verbalize it that much, but it's something that comes back in a major way later on and truly contextualizes the entire story and all that he's done. Lucy, for her part, is the whole classic mysterious waifu bait early on, but she develops out from that because you see her fear. She is not infallible. She becomes more than just the stereotypical cool, untouchable girl. And while her dream is really just an excuse for Trigger to do that thing they do every fucking time and go to space, it's still something that really is just so different that you want to know more about her. And I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up the short queen herself, Rebecca. I may have some issues of my own with her design, but as a character, she's the most fun person out here. And again, the development. The show is like 2 to 3 episodes shorter than the average anime, and she's not even fully involved in the whole plot until very late in the game, and she still leaves that much of a mark. Before I close up on this, I just want to take a moment to shout out the absolute fucking banger of a soundtrack. I'm that asshole who mostly plays games on mute, turn off the radio and games so that I can listen to whatever I want to listen to, but watching the anime changed that because most of these songs are in the game. David's theme song, Who's Ready for Tomorrow, is such an absolute bop that gives you a perfect encapsulation of David's world. The carnival-esque beat behind it captures his strut and the way he moves throughout the world, while the lyrics almost describe him exactly. A teenage outlaw with no worries on his mind. Then you've got the one no one will be able to forget, I Really Want to Stay at Your House. I think the key to this song is that it isn't used during sad moments in the show. It's used in probably the most joyous occasion early on, and then that exact scene is reflected at the end to change the meaning of that song and how it makes you feel. It's just a wonderful way to truly show how much has changed between each time the song is played. So now it joins True Love by Tobias Gesso Jr. as 2 songs that will immediately make me start to tear up within the first couple measures. Give him the lumber, boys. Give him the fucking lumber. And the other big song on the soundtrack is unfortunately not in the Cyberpunk 2077 radio system, but it is something that was on the radio a lot when I was a kid, at least the original version anyway. It is the OP This Fire by Franz Ferdinand. Surprisingly, this is not the first time Franz Ferdinand has been in an anime. Their song Do You Want To was used as an ED in Nana author Ai Yazawa's other major success, Paradise Kiss. But growing up as a Chicago Fire fan around the time this song was getting major airtime on WXRT, hearing This Fire at the start of every episode just did something to me and like brought out my childhood. Anyway, to round this whole thing out, I just want to say that I think this show single-handedly saved CD Projekt Red, because so many people were convinced to give the game another shot, and new DLC to fix a lot of the game's original problems had come out right before the release of the anime. Really, it just cooked up a perfect storm, and even I'm getting back into it. I never actually finished the campaign before, and I was one of those poor fucking souls that pre-ordered it. Seeing David's story genuinely did something for me and made me want to get back into it. Number 2. Bocce The Rock. Another show that juked everyone out. This really did just look like a cute girls do cute things show. A spiritual successor to K-On!, maybe a bit of, Hitori Bocce or whatever. And it kind of was the spiritual successor to K-On! In that it marks a vast cultural shift in anime, or at least I hope it does. Basically, this isn't cute girls do cute things. This is cute girls stare into your very soul and find exactly what's wrong with it. Like, people talk about feeling seen, and I felt seen throughout this entire anime, but I also felt like I was being seen while my pants were down. Bocce is every one of us, especially, YouTubers who make music, but don't really want to release any of it anymore, and so they kind of just post videos of themselves playing, maybe VTubers specifically. Someone who wants to be heard but not perceived. Someone who desires attention but cannot bring themselves to go out and get it. Not even a minute into the first episode, I saw myself, a kid who couldn't find a place among the other students and would stay by the teacher. I never visited a friend's house or went out with friends because I didn't have any. I just came home every day, played FIFA, watched SourceFed while I was still around. The only messages I ever got on my phone were from my parents. That's it. And although I had the desire to change, I never actually did anything about it. The show does something amazing that I don't think anybody else has truly touched upon, but they make a real distinction between being a loner and being alone. Because there's so many people out there who talk about how you should just learn to enjoy your own company, and there's plenty of people that do, but those people are inherently different from those who actually do need to be social, but don't have the tools or opportunity to do so. Bocce exposes that dark closet inside of our minds, the same one that Bocce lives in. And it's not really a gay metaphor here, although there's plenty of very apparent Yuri ships here that I don't even have the time to get into. It's more that the show shines a light on people who are just too scared to reach out, overthinking things, over-preparing for events that never come to pass, and giving up before you even pick up the ball. But also I did record 2 albums from inside of my actual closet, so it's still hitting way too close to home there. And it's not just Bocce, and it's not just being a loner that's being portrayed here, it's every single character showing off a different side to anyone watching this show. Most of us are going to be Bocce, because, I mean, that's just who weebs are, but some are the actual loners, like Ryo, who are fine with who they are. Some are Nichika, the person that is integral into making sure the Bocces of the world can actually go out and, interact with people. They do their best to be that bridge. And then there's Kita, who, has her own issues and being that same sort of neurotic person, but overcompensating with that gankiness. There's so many other more complicated conversations here. I do not have the time to get into all of it. I don't know, watch Mother's Basement video about it. That was pretty good. But even Hiroi and Seika have this dichotomy between the two of them that says something about adult life. Hiroi's happiness spiral feels way too real. Oh, I'm almost out of my vodka. You can walk into this show with the expectation that you're going to get something really cute, and you're going to get that. You're also going to get some of the most amazing off-the-wall and inventive animation in all of modern anime. Remember when I talked about Galto Kyoru? That was the prototype to Bocce's Meltdowns. Even though it's not the same studio, it's not the same director, whatever. That just set the scene for the amazing weird shit that they just did with Bocce. Because all of the references, style change-ups, and overall fun of what is essentially a high school girl having a panic attack is such a good time for the viewers. I think that there will be and should be constant praise for Yoshino Aoyama's performance in this show as Bocce. I mean, people talk about the story with, like, the screech, but there's just so much in this anime that to love about her performance. Also, the music is absolute heat, bro. Again, I'm not big into this kind of stuff, although this is different from idol music, but, usually I'm not into this sort of, like, specific style, but these lyrics are so deep and the music sounds amazing. Bocce's solo is absolutely amazing. There's just so much to love about this show. Now, before I get to the best show, I just want to make sure I don't forget the most important award of all of them, Best Girl. First of the ones technically on the list, Gargura, she was in the one short Hololive made, and it was really cute and adorable, so technically Guambus counts and is on the ballot. Texas from Arknights. There was an Arknights show this season that I did not watch because the game already confuses me and takes up enough of my time. I just like Texas. She's an alcoholic and has seen some shit. The hottest combination in fiction, incredibly dangerous in real life. Lum from Urusei Yatsura, the original waifu, although I think the times may have surpassed her, unless she brings back some of that amazing drip. I mean, oof, you look at some of those outfits from the old days and she got drip. Now for some girls who are on everyone else's list, Your Forger from Spy X Family, Mommy Bondage, also that Virgin Killer sweater. Yep. I appreciate all the fan art that this has spawned, but she's just not the one for me this year. Power from Chainsaw Man. She's fun. I heard some of the voice acting, and it's just so perfect to her character. What now? She's based off of Cartman? Lucy from Cyberpunk. Everyone loves her. It's hard not to, especially seeing the character development. It's like Ami Kawashima all over again. Others may point to Rebecca, to which I'll resist the urge to call the police. And honestly, best girl in that show is between Beefcake Dorio and David's mom. Drunk girls, because I need someone to drink this with me. Mizuki Nakahara from Lyco Rico. There's other probably better girls within the show. I mean, Chisato is one. But the moment she was on screen, I was... Her relationship with the hacker girl is hilarious. She rates a few glasses of quality Kentucky bourbon, maybe Buffalo Trace, we're not made of money here, followed by 3 whole bottles of Svedka because that's what was on stale. Kikuri Hiroi from Bocce The Rock. Again, the moment she was on screen, I was laughing my ass off. She also presented to me a scarily accurate and personal reflection of my soul in a way that I am not comfortable with. She's getting an entire wholesale case of 1-cup sake from FamiMart and 2 whole growlers of this microbrew Scotch ale that I got that's like 18.9%. I know there's no microbrewing in Japan, that's why I want her to have it. I want her to develop some taste, you know? Vermeil from Vermeil. I said earlier that if there's one thing that this show did right, it was making an Ara Ara lady. I don't think she actually drinks, but she just has the vibe of someone who would do all of her flirting while drunk. So she gets some barefoot box wine. Housewife it up, my dude. Some rare finds. Ava from Birdie Wink. I mean, look at her style. Look at the way she carries herself. She's wonderful. This is a stock that you will still have time to buy low on before the second season this year. Renko Manin from Akiba Maid War. An ex-con maid girl with the battle instincts of a special ops unit and the alluring stoic charm of a villain in an 80s movie. She can handle herself physically, but she needs someone there for her emotionally, and I want to be that. Isana Higashira from Surekano. I mentioned her a bit, but she's literally every weeb's dream. Big boobs, doesn't like wearing clothes, doesn't mind showing either of those two things off around her one guy friend, and she's really into the weird shit and does not stop talking about it. But final answer, the actual weeb dream. Marin Kitagawa from Sono Bisque Doll. Couldn't really be anyone else. I even made a video about how she was even better in the anime than in the manga. Jiggle physics, bubbly personality, and a genuine heart. She's all anyone can ask for, and so much more. And I think the biggest reason she's up here is because she's so human. She has plenty of flaws in her personality, but because those flaws exist, she is grounded. They're subtle, but it's not the classic perfect girl for Pro-Tacoon and the audience to love at. She's active. Finally, number 1 anime of 2022. Lycoris Recoil. I feel like you may be confused why I didn't give Bocce the top spot with all of my praise to it, but there's just so much in Lycoris Recoil, a show that I didn't even mention in my summer 2022 preview, that is genuinely one of my favorite shows of all time now, next to stuff like Bunny Girl, Monogatari, and Sayakano. Again, this is going to be a sports reference, but I described it to my soccer people as like watching a world-class midfielder picking out passes that nobody else sees out there. I just finished about a glass and a half of vodka, and currently that's about where I am right now. And I just went off about how the person who wrote this just had such amazing vision. I called it the anime version of champagne football, and it is. Look, I think we all understand that the thing that gets me going is if you can create the space and exploit it. Set it up early, knock it down later, use your Chekhov's guns wisely. And even from early on, I thought, yeah, this is a good show. But then there were just some choices that the writers made that had me up on my feet and cheering in my room because holy shit, they went there. They did that. As I said earlier with Cyberpunk, it's one thing when you know what's coming and that's part of the excitement. It's an entirely different thing when you have just a small thought and then say, nah, they won't do it. And then they do it. Or it's just something completely out of left field that really does make immediate sense the moment it's placed in front of you. Like, oh wow, yeah, that tracks. I swear the first 90 seconds of this show may have been the greatest opening to an anime like in the post-moe revolution like era. Chisato's cheerful narration juxtaposed with a bunch of cute girls carrying around silenced pistols. You know exactly what the show is going to be like without knowing where it's actually gonna go, which is perfect. That's the perfect way to set up a show. So let's get into the actual keys for how this show works at its core. The leads. Chisato and Takina are absolutely adorable. They're two characters that you just instantly love. Not just from their character design, but from their energies, their immediate chemistry. Even if Takina hates Chisato at the beginning, that's not a problem judging from the other Yuri ships I've mentioned earlier today. It's the stakes of this show that craft a character you will love and then give them something they need to solve for themselves. Make that a central part of the story. It's the stakes of this show that craft a character you will love and then give them something they need to solve for themselves. Make that a central part of the story. I don't know how many times I've had to tell young weeb writers to stop making everything about the end of the fucking world. No one gives a shit about the world. Just look at us right now. It's all going to shit and you're still just sitting here watching someone controlling a digital puppet talking about anime. Raising the stakes has nothing to do with the scope. It has everything to do with the emotional impact on each of the characters. And Lycoris Recoil has two characters in Takina and Chisato that have some deep emotional stakes that are deeply entwined with each other, to the point that they actually end up swapping and they work against each other in the hopes that the other person achieve their dream in spite of their own. And I don't know how much I should say about this show in an overview versus a separate video, because all of these writing choices that I keep mentioning are so integral to the whole feel of the story and come almost from nowhere to really get you. But I think the main thing to say is that Chisato's pacifism and refusal to be the killing machine she was meant to be is some of the greatest character writing I've seen in any action anime. Even if the actual physical logic of her following through on it just not working. She definitely uses some Batman, Spider-Man loopholes to technically not kill people, but it is a key emotional core to the entire show, and the way it connects to the overall plot is so unexpected and hard to see, but when you do see it, it is amazing. Seriously, the best part about this entire show is a massive spoiler, so I can't talk about it too much. Just watch the fucking show. It's champagne football. And that's it. That's the end. This is going to be an absolute nightmare to edit within just 3 days, but whatever. I probably won't even get it done in time, but if I do, that's impressive. I'm proud of myself. And if I didn't get it done, I mean, you know, it's hard. Editing is hard. So yeah, I'll be back with an MLS season preview at the latest, but for now, I gotta get back to school. Last semester coming up. Tell me what you think of my new editing choices and what I've been doing and the music that's playing in the background. Also, like, subscribe, please feed the algorithm. Comment below what you think about my take on Chainsaw Man. Please don't. Say something nice about all the other shows that I talked about, and like, I don't know, don't just feed the algorithm, feed my ego and talk about the shows that I liked and say, yeah, you're right for liking it. We're up to 300 subs, so that's cool. I know it's a big goal, especially because I'm currently at 300 and I'm asking for so much more, but I'm really still hoping to have 1,000 by next year. I mean, I know that I've gotten some comments from people saying that, oh yeah, you actually have fans here, and that's cool. I really appreciate that. So yeah, thanks for watching. Thanks for still being here, and yeah. Now I don't know what to do with myself. Maybe I'm stronger than I think. I'm still